And then continuing on with developer-friendly features, we're going to move on to Jane's presentation. So for those of you who are relatively new to MarkLogic, all week you've been seeing great examples of what can be done when you have all this mixed and varied data inside a repository, and you might be thinking, well, how do I get it there in the first place? For those of you who are having those thoughts, you're about to be introduced to your new best friend, which is MarkLogic Content Pump, affectionately known as MLCP. And here to introduce it to you is our principal engineer, Jane Shen, who we refer to as the mother of MLCP.
Hi, everyone. So you've heard a lot this week about how MarkLogic helps you with data integration. If you do have a need for data integration, you want to check out MarkLogic Content Pump. It's a command line tool for bulk data transportation. I'm going to show you what it is capable of and how to leverage its full capacity. When you start with a brand new database, you need to put some data in. MLCP allows you to import a variety of data from the file system into your database. By default, it treats everything as documents. They can be in any format, compressed or uncompressed. They can also be an archive generated by MLCP from another database. It's basically a snapshot of your content containing document and its metadata. So importing an MLCP archive essentially restores everything you exported from the database. They can also be files containing many records. MLCP can extract records and construct database documents from them. They can even be a forest data directory or a backup. MLCP can read the compressed format from MarkLogic data files and load documents into the database. But that's not it. Before the data is saved into your database, you get to modify the data with a plugin function. So basically, what we've covered is extract, transform, and load. Now you have a database full of content. You can also go the opposite direction. You can dump the data out to the file system, either as documents or as an opaque archive. So I wish that it's completely symmetric to the import, but I guess we still have work to do here. And then copy. You can also replicate data through the copy command. You get to choose what to copy. There are different ways to slice and dice it. And people find it useful for migrating from one platform to another or upgrade across different versions. So this is a consolidated view. So you can see MLCP on the way in and on the way out. And here's a chart showing some ingestion throughput that we measure when we use the MLCP to ingest to a MarkLogic cluster running on AWS. As you can see, as the cluster size grows, so does the ingestion throughput. So Content Pump is known to be the fastest way to load data into MarkLogic. Let's see how. First, it employs the Hadoop infrastructure, and it works in parallel to move data. This is true not only for import, but also for export, and regardless of the type of data you operate on. So even when you just have a single aggregate file, multiple threads are at work to load the data in. Behind the scene, it is the MarkLogic server that's doing the heavy lifting. MLCP talks to the MarkLogic server in multiple concurrent sessions, and the throughput of your job is always bound to the throughput of your server. But we try to minimize the overhead by loading documents in batches, which helps reduce the network overhead and the transaction overhead. It all works out of the box, but there are also knobs for you to fine-tune based on your workload. The job tries to connect directly to where the data is located and where it's going to be stored. So it bypasses the e-nodes, and in certain scenarios, it even connects directly to the individual forests. When your MarkLogic cluster grows, MLCP scales with it. So if running multiple threads on a single machine cannot keep up with the processing power of your MarkLogic cluster, you can run MLCP in distributed mode, which leverages multiple nodes to run the workload. So when it comes to tuning an MLCP job, the key to remember is to fully leverage your server, fully utilize your server. So any MLCP job tuning starts with server settings. For import, you want to make sure that you have the right index settings and a good number of forests. And remember that MLCP wants to connect to the D nodes. So if you have ED node separation, you want to have the app server properly configured for the D nodes. Thread count is on the MLCP side. It's MLCP config option that controls the number of concurrent sessions MLCP maintains to the server. So by default, it is 4, and if you're running MLCP on a separate machine from the MarkLogic cluster, you can tune it up based on your cluster size and your app server thread count. Batch size, it's another configuration option on MLCP. By default, it's 100, and depending on your document size, your thread count, you may want to tune it down. So this is a case where the bigger isn't necessarily the better. Fast load is also a scalability factor. It's basically in-forest placement. So for a large cluster, fast load helps you scale because it reduces the locking scope and it increases concurrency. So sometimes we get a question like, how fast can you ingest data? And the typical response is, how fast do you need it to be? As MarkLogic is designed and built with a scale-out architecture, so is MLCP. So if you want to load and store more data with MarkLogic at a higher speed, just add more nodes to it. Thank you.
Thanks, Jen. So like any good mother, you continue to nurture your baby. And what can we expect from MLCP and MarkLogic 9?
We've already done a few things that's related to security. We added redaction. We added auditing for MLCP jobs. We have also added Kerberos support, and we're doing more.
Great. Well, you've been busy. All right. Thanks so much, Jane.
Thank you.
Thanks.